Listening to The Scrimmage with Daniel Hargrove and Justin Domashevitz.
Good afternoon, and welcome to The Scrimmage. I want to make a weird noise. Maybe that's the thing is next time I'll let you do that because Daniel always comes in with this like big energy, big noise. I thought about like scatting or doing something cool, and then I chickened out at the last second. And I said, good afternoon.
I was distracted until all of a sudden I realized no one was making loud noises.
Yeah. I like to, when Daniel starts making the loud noises, I like to just stare at him. And then he just keeps doing it, and then eventually he stops, and then I like to let it sit.
Yeah, that's good radio.
Do nothing, yeah. But anyway, this is The Scrimmage. I'm Justin Domashevitz. Daniel Hargrove is no longer with us today. We're hoping that maybe he'll be able to jump in on Zoom at some point, but we're not sure. But either way, I'm here, Andrew's here, Gluteus Maximus is here, under the table, panting heavily because it's warm. We do have a lot of good stuff to talk about today. We're going to talk about the betrayal of the Seattle Mariners and Jerry Dipoto. We got some local stuff to talk about, including another Montesano football win. We also had a Montesano soccer win. Not quite as robust of a local sports roundup as usual, but we do have some good local stuff to talk about. And, of course, we have to name a Spivey Athlete of the Week. But let's kick things off first with the 2-minute drill.
Do I go first or did you go first?
I read first.
Okay.
Let's go, huddle up. Gotta hurry. Hey, 2-minute situation, 44 seconds, hand the ball around. Gonna do it right. 3 jet Buckeye, don't worry.
The 2-minute drill starts now.
Washington State quarterback Cam Ward struggled in the Cougars' first loss of the season on Saturday, a 25-17 defeat at the hands of UCLA. Ward completed less than 50% of his passes and threw 2 picks. Ward had been stellar prior to this week. Andrew, does his subpar performance leave you feeling concerned going forward?
Concerned, yes. Panicked, not yet. He was running for his life the whole game. Hopefully, when they can protect him a little bit better, he'll play better. Justin, the University of Miami lost to Georgia Tech on Saturday when they decided to run the ball instead of kneeling out the clock. Literally, only kneeling out the clock. Mm-hmm. The Hurricanes lost a fumble with 26 seconds left, and Georgia Tech scored on a long touchdown pass with 1 second left, winning 23-20 over the 17th-ranked Miami. Justin, how big of a deal was this mistake?
It's a really big deal because maybe people don't remember this, but this is not the first time that Mario Cristobal has done this. He used to be the coach at Oregon, and his Ducks team had Stanford. They had Stanford when Stanford was ranked in the top 10. They did the same thing. They ran the ball when they didn't have to run the ball, fumbled it, turned it over. So this is a guy, it's a new place, but he's making the same mistakes. He's always been marred with clock management issues. He even came out afterwards and denied all the possible reasons that it could have happened. Like people were saying, was there confusion over whether or not Georgia Tech had a timeout? Cristobal said no. The other people were saying they was trying to let their running back get over 100 yards because he had some kind of a booster in his NIL deal that he gets more money if he has 100 yards. They came out and said, no, that's not why. He just did it because he's dumb, which is pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Andrew, your Oregon State Beavers avoided an upset on Saturday. This question was written for Daniel, but Andrew's going to answer it. Your Oregon State Beavers avoided an upset on Saturday by outpacing Cal in a shootout, 52-40. Often criticized quarterback DJ Uiagalelei passed for 5 touchdowns without turning the ball over. Has DJ redeemed himself in your eyes?
DJ didn't need to redeem himself in my eyes. I've always been a believer in DJ Lee, and go Beavers.
Go Beavs.
Pack 2, second best.
Yeah.
Justin, your 14th ranked North Carolina Tar Heels crushed the Syracuse Orange 40-7 on Saturday. Drake May passed for 400. Oh, this is football.
Yeah.
442 yards and 3 tutties. How good are the Heels?
They're great. Drake May should be the first overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft, and the Tar Heels are going to win the national championship in the college football playoffs.
See, I would have swore that if North Carolina was playing Syracuse at something and one of them scored 40 points, it was going to be a basketball game.
Yeah. I also like holding a basketball team to 7 feels pretty impossible. But
well, it would be newsworthy. We'd be talking
me.
about it.
That's just me. Now that we got 2-minute drill out
It's
of the way.
also not basketball season, is it?
Andrew, I wanted to talk a little, like very briefly about that Cougs game.
I don't want to talk about it.
Because what's happening now is the thing that always happens, which is Pac-12 teams beat each other up.
Yeah.
So the Cougars ruined the unblemished record of the Beavers, and now UCLA, who had just dropped out of the rankings. Wait, is that who it was that beat them?
Yeah, UCLA.
UCLA, who had just dropped out of the rankings, I believe, has ruined the unblemished record of Wazoo. So I think it feels like, once again, Pac-12 teams are just going to take turns beating each other, so everybody has at least one loss at the end of the season.
Yeah, probably.
So I guess the big thing is, like, going into this game, were you feeling like, man, this Cougars team, undefeated, they beat a ranked Beavers team. Like, is this a team that could win out and then go play for the college football playoff?
Are you asking if I was waiting for the other shoe to drop?
I'm asking, I guess what I'm asking is because when I look at the Pac-12, it's hard to pinpoint which team is going to be like, this is the team we pin our hopes on to go to the college football playoff. And I want to know if you felt like the Cougars could have been that team.
I did feel like the Cougars could have been that team. I was worried that they weren't. Mm-hmm. And it turns out they're not.
It's funny,
Still
though.
the best team in the Pac-2, but
Pac-2 champions. The other funny thing to me is that when that thing happened with Miami, which, by the way, with Mario Cristobal, like,
that's real bad.
It's real bad that it happened once. It's almost unbelievable that he did the same thing after having made that mistake before in his career.
Yeah.
Like, almost unbelievable. And then I was like, oh, they snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory. They couged it. Like, for real.
That's extra. I don't even know if that's an extra level.
Is
because
it
that's
too
like,
much?
That's like willfully choosing not to win.
Yeah.
Whereas generally I feel like couging it is just completely forgetting how to do what you're doing at the end of the game. So instead of, like, I would never expect, if the Cougars got to that point and they lost, I wouldn't even say couging. Like, I feel like people wouldn't feel like, oh, they couged it. They'd be like, oh my gosh, we need to fire every single person.
Yeah.
Couging it is if in the last quarter you get outscored 21-3.
Okay.
And you're like, well,
you let
sucked.
the other team recover an onside kick and you had your hands on it, but you couldn't clutch it.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it I don't want to, like, dwell forever on this Miami thing, but it's totally unbelievable to me.
That's crazy.
And they had I think it was Pro Football Focus, one of the analytics sites had deemed them the number one team in the nation through the first 4 weeks when they were undefeated, and they beat
Mario Cristobal says, "Hold my beer."
Right, exactly. Like Miami fans, University of Miami fans were like, "We're gonna win a chip." They were like, "We're gonna be in the college football playoff," and then the next thing you know, they're not, and they lost to a mediocre team. But they lost to a mediocre team because their coach chose to lose to a mediocre team. It's weird.
I wonder how many years we are out from the generation of coaches that will have learned the game from Madden. This occurred to me. Actually, I was thinking about this week because KJ Wright, when he was on the KJ Wright show on 710 on Wednesdays, he comes on for an hour with Brock and Salk, and he completely straight-faced told Salk that he learned a ton about the game of football playing Madden as a little kid, like as a 7 and 8 year old. And I think he's probably right. I don't think everyone who plays Madden learns that stuff, but if that stuff makes intuitive sense to you and you're exposed to it at a young age, I absolutely believe that has an like KJ Wright is possibly one of the best linebackers ever to play the game at sensing anticipating
Like the screen passes?
screen passes.
Yeah.
Like insanely good at it.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that it does make sense to me, that having tons and tons of repetitions of seeing what that looks like, it could help. But in thinking about that, I was like, I wonder, there's coaches. There have to be coaches that also grew up playing Madden. I wonder where they are. I wonder where those guys are. If they're, KJ's early 30s, right? Maybe mid-30s
Maybe
now?
mid-30s. Maybe mid.
I mean, Bobby Wagner's still playing.
Yeah. Well, KJ
So-
was drafted in what, like 2011? Was he pre-Bobby?
Do you want me to try to look that up?
No, it's okay.
They were really close anyway. So I would like mid 40s would probably be when we'd start to see head coaches, right?
Well, there's some guys that are in the like, isn't Sean McVay like in his late 30s or
Sean
something?
McVay might be an example of that.
I think it's funny too, because like the
Anyways.
things that you learn from Madden are if I run 4 verts over and over again, I'll score 11 touchdowns a game.
Yes and no, though. That's what happens if you play Madden.
Yeah.
But if you play football using Madden, then you learn the other things.
Yeah.
Like how coverages work, what sort of routes are designed to attack different types of coverages, stuff like that.
We've got a message in the
Also-
chat saying that KJ is 34.
Okay.
Thanks,
yeah.
Anna.
So also you learn things like when to call timeout, when not to call timeout.
Yeah.
When you don't need to do anything more except not touch anything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And isn't it Tyreek Hill, the NFL wide receiver? I think it was Tyreek Hill, said he doesn't really know much about the cornerbacks and stuff, the defensive players he goes up against, but he just looks at who they're playing that week, and then he goes and checks their Madden speed ratings. And that's how he learns about his opponents, is checking the Madden speed ratings. I think that was Tyreek Hill.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's an interesting topic.
He only trusts them because they gave him 99.
Yeah.
The rest of the players in the league are all mad at Madden for not making them fast enough.
That's true. Well, the players always have to have a reason to feel disrespected. That's how they motivate themselves. In the chat, Daniel says, "Go Beavs." Daniel, thank you for joining us.
Is he trying to get?
Is he trying? Is he?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. We are hoping that what I really want to do with Daniel today is I'm hoping that he'll jump in when we have our conversation about Jerry Dipoto and the betrayal of the Seattle Mariners to the fact that they do favors for their fans. We're definitely
Really kind of them.
We're definitely going to discuss that at some point soon. Is there anything else from the 2-minute drill, Andrew, that you wanted to dive into deeper? Do you want to talk about North Carolina football for a little bit, or?
No.
Okay, well, we'll move on then.
I will admit, I do know that they have a football team, and they've been pretty good over the last few years. I did, when I was reading it in real time, I saw North Carolina Tar Heels crush Syracuse, and I was thinking, those are basketball teams.
We are coming up. Basketball season's not too far away. There's definitely going to be some discussion during basketball season, probably.
Does Syracuse have a football team? Or is the reason that North Carolina won that they were playing against Syracuse's basketball team?
No, they were playing the football team. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I thought that Syracuse was bad. They were 4-1, I believe, going into the game.
Are they in the same?
They're in the ACC. Yeah,
okay.
They're both in the same conference. So maybe
The American Coast Conference.
Yeah, the American Coast the American Coasts Conference, because it has to be multiples.
Yes.
Because now they're on both coasts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Both coasts.
Okay, well, let's move on to my favorite part of the show.
We might someday if I can find the tab.
Serving questions up on a silver platter, where the points are made
Serving
up.
questions
I can
up
do that.
on a silver platter, where the points are made up and the rules don't matter. Time for Stump Daniel.
Stump Daniel is brought to you by the law office of Jeffrey A. Domashevitz, no relation.
What's the A stand for?
And I instead of doing like an actual like trivia asking you questions thing, I just want to throw a crazy stat
I think
out
Daniel
there.
might be there he is.
Oh, is he?
I think.
Hey,
Yay!
Daniel!
Daniel, you're live.
Daniel, can you hear us? Daniel, can you?
Daniel might be muted.
Daniel, can you? I don't think he can hear us either. I see his face, but he's not reacting. Hi. Can you hear us?
Sorry, I had to, join via audio and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It shows your face before you're ready to do that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you are live, my friend. You are live, and you're just in time for Stump Daniel.
I was wondering about that. Yes, I'm glad I could get here in time.
Perfect
since you
timing.
guys were either not responding to my messages or saying slanderous things that I said.
Let's see. Oh, there were messages in the chat that I missed. Wait, no. Anyway, moving on to what I did for Stump Daniels Day. I had 2 separate people send me a post about the exact same thing and said, hey, you should put this on Stump Daniels today. And it is something that I've heard of before. So it's not, I'm not really going to ask you a question. I'm just going to throw this out and then we can discuss it. It's just a trivia sort of a thing. And it's something that you've definitely heard.
Okay.
So did you know that the Seattle Mariners have the same number of playoff appearances in their 47-year history as they have ruptured testicles suffered by their players? They have 5 playoff appearances in their 47-year history, and also 5 players have suffered a ruptured testicle for the Seattle Mariners.
I think I know 2 of those, Adrian Beltre and Mitch Haniger. Who else?
Yes, Adrian Beltre in 2009, Mitch Haniger in 2019. In 1980, a pitcher named Mike Parrott took a comebacker off the bat.
Ooh.
Yeah. In 1997, Josias Manzanillo stopped a Manny Ramirez liner with his cup. That's not a good idea, by the way.
Yeah, you should try to use something else.
Yeah. A glove would, I think, be the best idea. You know what's funny? This post says that there are 5, and then it only listed 4 of them.
Maybe one of them had both testicles rupture. Oh. Was there a double deuce in there somewhere?
Oh. Let's see. 1980 Mike Parrott, blah, blah, blah. 1997 Manzanillo. 2009 Adrian Beltre. And then there's a lot of words in that one, but no, just one. Yeah, they only listed 4.
A lot of words.
They only listed 4. Bad job by baseball history dork. Anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting stat. And like I said, I have heard that before. I think when Haniger did it a few years ago, then people were really like, man, we're just as good at rupturing testicles as we are at making it to the playoffs. So even with the playoff appearance last year, with the expanded playoffs, they still have the same amount. Anyway, that's going to conclude Stump Daniel. And now, I think, Daniel, the thing that I really want to talk about with you while you're with us, and I'm sure you were hurt by this. Jerry Dipoto said some stuff. And I
did.
When a baseball executive says something stupid, the first thing I try to do is go listen the next day to Nothing Personal with David Sampson. He's a former baseball executive who now has a podcast, and he really doesn't hold anything back when he talks about the business side of baseball and the PR side of baseball. He called what Jerry Dipoto said a top 5 all-time dumbest thing ever said by a baseball executive. And he said that if he were in charge of the team, he would have fired him immediately. So Dipoto has not skated on this, and he doesn't have supporters. He's been just basically torn down. I want to know your thoughts and your reaction to hearing Jerry Dipoto say that he, in fact, winning 54% of your games, not only is that okay, and that's what we're aiming for, but we're doing you a favor.
I mean, those were 2 separate comments, right? Like, so.
Well, yeah. He said that what he said was doing a favor was that
being patient.
Yeah, not selling out to win everything this year or in 1 year.
Yeah. So I remember typing a lot of WTFs that day when that happened. Just like, what are you talking about? Especially when he said 54%. Like, sure, if you want to go all like,
that's 88 wins for people who aren't good at. No, I was just saying for anyone out there who isn't great at percentages, 54% of 162 is 88.
Yeah. So, but what he was saying was over a 10-year period, if
Averaging.
you have win 54% of your games, then over a 10-year period, so not just in a season, but he communicated that, A, so awfully, and B, you telling me the Dodgers are only trying to win 54% of their games over a 10-year period? No, they're not. They're not trying to win only 54. They're like, no, we want to win 60% of it, 70%. Like, it's just bonkers. They're trying to win 100 games every year. And especially when you're like, his go-to, I'm sure, is like, oh, well, look at the Mets and the Yankees and the Padres. And it's like, yeah, we're not asking you to be dumb. Look at the Rangers. They did exactly what we want you to do. Their farm system's great. They got to a certain point and were like, hey, now's time to buy. Now, we don't even need you to do what they did because they went and got Simeon and Seager and Syndergaard and all of this. We're not asking you to go crazy. We're asking for one freaking bat. That's it. And then you say, oh, we're doing the fans a favor. Shut up. Like, how many times do people have to say stuff about the Mariners fan base that it's like they have zero knowledge of history? And he's been here for what, since 2000, these 8 years now, 9 years? One of the fans that hopped on the line the other day before he made these comments on the radio listed off like 4 different GMs that have taken garbage teams and brought them into the playoffs and competing into the playoffs, including the Rangers, by the way. Like, their GM's been at the job for like 4 years. And we're in year 4 or 5 of our rebuild after he'd already been there. So, yeah, I've calmed down a lot. I've listened to a lot of different things. I listened to him basically say that he said one of the stupidest things. You know, it wasn't just that guy who said it, but he came on the Brock and Salk show and said, I completely whiffed on both of those comments. And so that was mildly appeasing, but
well,
if they don't sign Shohei Ohtani, then
Not happening.
I'm gonna go start a fire at the offices. Like, this is just awful.
Wow.
The problem
Threat
with
of arson.
with what he was saying on the Brock and Salk podcast the next day or a few days later is he didn't apologize for anything that he said. He apologized for not communicating his points well enough, and then he basically explained why everything he said was still right. It just hadn't been interpreted properly. And the problem is not that, like, yes, if you are winning 50, if you look at the teams that have won 54% of their games over a 10-year period, they're good teams. They also didn't win 54% of their games every year. They started out really bad. They built a good team, and then they ended that 10 years winning 90, 95 games, more than 95 games, not just always at least there. It's not a situation where you're like, well, we just want to be barely getting in every year. It's a situation where if you build a good team over 10 years, you'll end up averaging around 54% because your early terrible years will be offset by your later really good years. And at no point did he acknowledge that, and it blows my mind that you would look at those numbers and think, yes, our goal should be to average 54%. No, your goal should be to win World Series, and you can say, I think that the best way for us to get to our goal is to make moves so that we're continually improving, and over time we'll know that we're improving because we'll get closer and closer to that 54% average as we get a better team. None of that is your goal. Your goal should be to win. Like, it should be to win. It shouldn't be to win some of the time. You can
Exactly.
say, hey, look, we won a lot of games, so we're getting closer to our goal of winning it all. But you can't say, well, actually, we did pretty good because we met our goal. And you should be grateful that our goal is, if we make the goal winning the World Series, then we'd make all these crazy moves, and then we'd be terrible if it didn't work.
That
well,
was
no,
the key
your
word
goal
is-
should be to win the World Series, and you don't have to make all the moves in 1 year to get there.
That was the key word, was you should be grateful. Like, that was the thing to me that was like, that was where he missed the mark so badly.
So
Was
bad.
that, hey, you know what? You guys should keep taking it when we barely miss the playoffs or when we barely make the playoffs, because we're doing this for you. We're doing you a favor. When all Mariners fans want is for you to complete a rebuild the way rebuilds are completed in Major League Baseball, where you tear a roster down. You did it. You tore the roster all the way down. You sucked bad for a few years on purpose so that you could build this team back up. You got really good prospects. And you got really good players who are coming into the primes of their career and to the best years of their career, and then you're supposed to go add to it. Like, that's what Cal Raleigh said. Is exactly right. Is exactly right.
Yep, exactly. I think the thing that they should have, the Cubs had that same press conference basically, except for their GM said, no, our goal every year is to win, and we failed. So we have to do better.
Yes.
That was
Now-
literally all that Mariners fans had to hear.
Exactly. Now, Jerry has said, I messed up the roster construction at the beginning of the year. So he has said some of those same things,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
He's just also said the really dumb crap where he's trying to sound really smart and smarter than everybody. So he has said the things that we want him to say, where he's like, I messed up. I screwed up the roster construction. I brought in Pollock. I brought in Wong. I screwed this up. But then he goes on and says this stupid, absolute mind-numbing crap and tries to spin it as I'm the smartest guy in the room by a million years. And we're like, okay, now you just sound like an idiot. And, it's not the first time we've been pissed off with Jerry Dipoto, right?
No, but
Well-
this time he didn't lie. This time he just said something stupid out loud that he shouldn't have said.
Well, see,
And
I
guess
think
the
it's
other-
the same
other
thing.
Side of the other side of this is, do any of us believe that he's got the keys to the bank?
It doesn't seem like it because Stanton's a Porzy.
I don't know. I think that it's a lot more complicated than just not having the money to spend, because he has spent a lot of money on Julio and a lot of money on Castillo, while still, like, admittedly, the rest of the roster is low enough that they're still not spending a lot of total money. I just feel like it's more complicated than just like, oh, he isn't going to spend money. I think it's more likely that there's got to be extra reason to spend the money, if that makes sense.
It's hard with Shohei specifically because I know we've talked about this before, but Shohei is the unique player that you can almost sign without financial worry because he's going to pay for himself. Like, because of how popular he is in his home country and how much more merchandise is going to be sold and how many more eyes from across the world are going to be on your product. That can't be said for most free agents that you sign, but it can be said for Shohei. So if financials are the concern there, then he should be the guy you want to sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If roster construction is your concern and you don't want to pay $50 million for a DH who may never pitch successfully again, then I kind of understand. But if the financial side of it is the concern, then you throw basically, like Daniel said, $1 billion. Spend twice as much as you need to because he's going to pay for himself.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. Like, let's say he never pitches again. You can't tell me that he's a guy who would then only be a DH. He's only a DH now because he pitches. The
Would he play
dude is a
first base?
freak. He is a freak athlete. First base, he's as fast as Julio is.
Yeah, he's stealing.
Like, first base would be a waste. He'd be in the outfield somewhere.
He could easily play a corner outfield.
I mean, does he have a
Next
good
to
arm?
Julio.
Could he play right field?
Well, actually, that's an interesting question. having to if his arm is bad enough that
Bryce
he can't
Harper.
pitch, okay, he would still be able to play outfield with an arm that couldn't pitch still.
I mean, if you're saying like after he comes back, tries to pitch, things aren't working out, that type of a situation, then he could move into the outfield. Yeah, I mean, he's not good. Bryce Harper had to DH for a year. Like, he could come back. He came back and hit, but he didn't play the field until the next season.
Yeah, well,
but now he's out there fine.
Yeah,
so
I think that it's been pretty universally reported that Shohei will bat next year, but will not be pitching until the year after next year.
Right. And then if that's a failure, he'd still be able to go play right field. Yeah. But I mean, that's it. There's just, if they don't do something big this year, because that's the thing, is the fans didn't put this expectation either.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me that the head of your baseball operations didn't know about your freaking marketing plan at the beginning of the season, which had freaking Scott Service checking off boxes and then circling the World Series as that was the one that was left, and then you're going to come out here and say, oh, we did you a favor that we're taking this really slow and 54%. No, that's not what you told us. You told us this. We didn't make this up. You told us, first of all, you told us what year you thought in the rebuild that we were going to be good. And then we got here, and then you hyped it all up, and now they take a step back because of the mistakes you made, and then you're like, oh, but actually, we just want to win 54% more. We're doing you guys a favor because we didn't do anything.
Well, and that whole section of comments was him saying we missed the playoffs, but in spite of the fact that we missed the playoffs, we actually feel like the team took a step forward this year. That's what he's, and he literally was basing that on the fact that they were better in every statistic except for strikeouts and wins.
Which is so frustrating.
Which means you took a step back because you're winning less.
Exactly. And all of the stats that everybody loves to run out, like, oh, they were striking out the same amount of times, or the same amount, if not more, during their August stretch. So striking out must not be the problem. And again, we nobody's like, yeah, total strikeouts.
They've shifted on that, though, too. In this last week, both Service and Jerry have admitted that they were striking out way too much. It just took them till the end of the season to admit it. That was the problem, a big problem.
Yeah, but also it depends on when you're striking out, when you have crappy at bats. That's the main thing. In August, when they got the bases loaded, they were doing damage. Although I did just watch every hype moment video from their big run. That's was basically the August run, and in that hype video, Goldsmith is going, well, let's see if they can pay this off after the 6th inning when they had the bases loaded with no outs. And I was like, oh, nope, apparently that's just a thing. Mariners baseball, bases loaded, no outs, no runs.
Well, also all strikeouts.
Soto Mojo.
You got to love these guys. Also, not every strikeout is equal at all. Like, if you're looking at numbers of strikeouts.
Not every strikeout is Julio watching 97 down the middle, swinging at 97 down the middle and missing, and then swinging at a curveball that starts outside and goes even farther outside.
Yeah, exactly. If you strike out on 8 pitches, I'm not mad. Even in the moment in a clutch position, if you strike out on 8, 9, 10, 11 pitches, I'm like, that was a battle. You battled. Good at bat.
Yeah.
You strike out on 4 pitches, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have swung.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe you should swing if you watch 4, but
yeah. Just ridiculous.
Do you guys have
absolutely insane?
Do you guys have more Mariners thoughts? Because there's actually a very simple solution to this problem.
When?
I have already filed the official paperwork to renew my fanhood of the Baltimore Orioles. So I will be bailing next year.
Well, that's another thing.
Well, Daniel, you're wearing black and orange. So.
I know. My wardrobe is fully suited for a switch to Baltimore.
I can guide
that's
you through the
other thing that
process.
makes-
I've done it a lot of times. I'm really good at it.
That's the other
Justin's
thing
got
that
a frequent
is-
flyer card.
That's the other thing that's frustrating about this is we watch other teams who are supposed to be a step behind us leapfrog us, right? The Astros were coming back down to earth, and we were supposed to be that next team growing, and then all of a sudden Texas leapfrogs us. The Orioles were in the middle of their own rebuild after being absolutely garbage, but they're supposed to be a year behind us. They won 100 games this year in the best division in baseball. I'm done with excuses. It's not okay. I'm so pissed.
Go O's. Do you guys have anything else on Mariners before we take a break and shift?
Do you want to hear the thing that I'm clinging to as hope?
Absolutely.
My hope is we have seen that Jerry is at least talented enough at putting together a roster that we got as good as we are, right? We agree that like our farm system is far better than it was before, and the team on the field is at least as good as they were with a better farm system behind them as they were like 4 or 5 years ago.
The organization is definitely in
Right.
a much better spot than it's been in a
Right.
long, long time.
So what I'm clinging to is that Jerry is terminally bad at communicating. Like really, really bad. And I think there is some evidence for this, not just based on the fact that he thought it was okay to say those things out loud, but also based on like the Graveman trade, which, Daniel, you may be willing to die on the hill that he lied. I think that you can make a very good argument that he thought he was telling the truth, and then he thought he followed through on what he said, but what he said just had no bearing on reality. So my hope is that in spite of him being horrible at communicating his plan and at getting buy-in on his plan, it still will work. And I'm not super hopeful because what I'm most worried about is not how much money he's going to spend, or because I think he's probably very willing to spend to trade, as opposed to, like, I don't know if they'll ever get a big free agent signing, but I do think that we might see a huge trade. But
That's so annoying.
But if Cal Raleigh and JP Crawford aren't buying into your process, I'm worried that even if your process is good, if you're so bad at communicating it that you can't sell it to your team leadership, that the team is going to get terrible. That's what I'm worried about.
And they've already showed that, you know? What I mean, Kyle Seager hates their guts so much that Corey Seager
Corey's taking
still dropping comments about it, taking shots. And now Cal and JP are having these conversations. Like,
And this is
not
also
good.
anyone who thinks, oh, that was rude to their teammates. You need to pay attention to what their teammates were saying, because everybody was going, yeah, like, he doesn't need to apologize for anything. He's right.
Yeah. And see, this is funny because this is a weird flash. First of all, Ian just texted me and says, bad communicators is why me and him have jobs. And that's true. But also, remember when Russell Wilson had that interview where he said, yeah, I'd like some help on the offensive line. I mean, Dwayne Brown was good, and everybody was like, oh, he better apologize to his offensive line, and he better apologize to Dwayne Brown. And I'm feeling the same thing here. Cal Raleigh saying, hey, we need more big-time guys is not him saying, I hate you, Josh Rojas. No. And Josh Rojas knows who he is.
And it might be
He fought
Cal
his life.
saying, Wong sucked. But guess what? Everybody else in the clubhouse knows that too. And that's not,
Exactly.
I mean, that Wong knew that too.
You saying Josh Rojas knows that he's not as good as Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah, I think he understands that.
I think it's fair to say most major league players know that. There might be a handful that think they're better. They're wrong, though.
Andrew, I'm having to leave now. I've got other family stuff I got to do. 2 sick kids.
Daniel's about to be
and-
wrist deep in poopy.
Daniel is about to no longer be with us today.
But I'm holding you, Andrew, to try and keep Justin from giving Athlete of the Week to all of the Monty people that he has just listed.
Well, you'll need to make your arguments via message. You can message the arguments on YouTube.
The nomination list, I didn't nominate any of them.
Gabe Bodwell, Gabe Bodwell, Gabe Bodwell, Gabe Bodwell, Gabe Bodwell.
All those nominations came from outside, and it just happens that the list is almost all Bulldogs. I don't know what you want me to do about it. I'd love to know what happened in the Elma game. I'd love to know what the stats were. The article's still not posted. I don't have any way to get stats. I know that they won. There very well could be an Athlete of the Week from the Elma's game, but nobody nominated anyone, and I don't have any access to the stats.
Right. That's so frustrating.
Agreed. Anyway, Daniel, you can go change a diaper or clean up puke or whatever you need to do. We will do the local sports roundup and select an Athlete of the Week without you.
All right. I'm sorry I can't be there, especially I feel like I couldn't bring all the energy I wanted to that last discussion too, but
I think you did great.
Yeah,
I think you did great.
It was good.
Well, do what you need to do, get some rest as well, and then you can set yourself up for a nice week at work.
Yay. Bye.
Bye, Daniel. Well, this seems like a good time. We have some local sports to talk about. I'll have a goals update, and we'll need to name a Spivey Athlete of the Week. But before we do that, let's take a quick commercial break.
It's taking a while.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I was busy closing the Zoom.
Do you have a legal situation and need someone on your side?
Yes.
Let the law office of Jeffrey A. Damashevitz be your advocate. If you've been the victim of medical malpractice, suffered a personal injury, or need representation with real estate law, small business law, or estate planning, let Jeff Damashevitz put his 29 years of experience to work for you. Call Jeff Damashevitz today at 360-612-3991 or visit damashevitzlaw.com. That's DAMASIEWICZLAW.com.
The Scrimmage is brought to you by the Law Office of Jeffrey A. Damashevitz and Spivey Realty Group. Thank you for those sponsors for helping make this show happen. I am Justin Damashevitz, Andrew Gross producing the show while also co-hosting here today, giving us lots of insights on Cougs and the Ners, and I can call them the Ners because Daniel's not here, because Daniel is no longer with us today. We have a small local sports roundup, and this is the part where I make excuses.
Okay.
I was really busy.
Oh wait,
this week.
do you need I don't have the slow music.
I was really busy this week, and I didn't have time to sort through all the articles and get all the different sports. So number one, I would like to apologize to people who don't play football or who don't play soccer at Monty or Elma. I did not intentionally exclude you. I just didn't have time. Also, we hardly got any Athlete of the Week nominations this week compared to they've been pouring in the last couple weeks, and we didn't get very many, so I didn't have a lot of stuff to look into. And as we mentioned, we don't have articles on the local sports action that now the football games, which now happened almost 2 full days ago. We don't have info on that, and I tried. Once I realized it was apparent we weren't going to get it, I tried emailing or texting some coaches and trying to figure out if there was a way that we could get some stats, but nobody had them accessible that I contacted. And I, again, apologize to the players. You deserve better. And we're going to try to figure out a system going forward that we won't have to depend on whether or not the article comes out on time. But for now, let's go ahead and do a abbreviated version of the local sports roundup. Third-ranked Montesano improved to 6-0 on the season with a 36-0 win over Eatonville on Friday at Jack Rottle Field. Bulldogs senior fullback Gabe Bodwell rushed for 3 touchdowns for the 4th consecutive game. Yes, I said 3 touchdowns for the 4th consecutive game. Very impressive. Monty forced 7 cruiser turnovers in the contest, 5 interceptions, and 2 fumbles. Bodie Poehler and Torrin Kreitz each picked off 2 passes. Kreitz also caught a long touchdown pass from Tyson Perry. In the second quarter, Thomas Flink scooped up an Eatonville fumble and returned it 31 yards for a score. Montesano will host Hoquiam on Friday. That'll be senior night. for Montesano. Andrew, do you want to read one?
Elma came back from a 21-0 deficit against Black Hills on Friday to take out the Wolves, 41-34. The Eagles trailed 28-14 at half, then scored 27 unanswered points. Elma will look for its second league win on Friday when they host to Slimo.
Elma, 4-2 on the season, by the way. That's a pretty impressive record, and I don't know how many people really saw that coming from this Eagles team. They've had a great season. In other football scores around the area, Aberdeen lost to top-ranked Tumwater 55-0 at Stewart Field. Hoquiam lost 51-13 at Tenino. North Beach lost to Tootle Lake 38-0. And PL Willapa Valley's comeback attempt fell just a little bit short in a 27-24 loss to Toledo. Toledo also the team that beat Raymond South Bend earlier this season. And as a little side note here, Raymond South Bend had a game scheduled against Nia Bay this week. Nia Bay canceled, so technically Raymond South Bend wins that by forfeit, but it's a non-league game, so it doesn't really matter.
Montesano and Elma's girls soccer teams renewed their rivalry on Tuesday in Elma. In yet another thrilling match between these two squads, Montesano came away with a win on PKs after playing to a 1-1 tie in regulation. Bethany Henderson scored the Bulldogs' lone goal in regulation on a direct free kick from about 25 yards out. Beta Valentine scored the Eagles' goal, assisted by Valerie Echeverria. The keepers for both teams shined as well. Montesano's Riley Timmons made 12 saves, and Elma's Emmie Spencer, previous athlete of the week, saved 9 shots. The 4 Monty players to make overtime PKs were Henderson, Mary Campbell, Alexa Stanfield, and Sam Roundtree. Miley Seberg and Aaliyah Weld converted their PKs for Elma. These two teams will meet again on October 19th in Montesano.
That will conclude the local sports roundup. Apologize again to anybody who's disappointed about the length of that. I did want to make sure we got this Monty Elma soccer result in there because that has been a huge rivalry over the last couple years, and a lot of the same girls in it because there's been a lot of underclassmen that have been performing on these teams for a while. Montesano was the league champion last year, but then Elma was the district champion. So they've really gone back and forth. In this one, Monty gets the best of them, just barely on PKs. And these two, and this is with Monty playing without the reigning league MVP, Michaela Stanfield, who's out with an ankle injury. They still came away with this win. And we did get an Athlete of the Week nomination for Bethany Henderson here. And I believe the direct quote from the message was, Bethany Henderson scored on Emmie Spencer. Nobody scores on Emmie Spencer. So she was the only goal scorer for Monty, and she scored on a really great goalie for Elma and Emmie Spencer. So I think that was worth noting. And I am excited at what's going to happen in the next matchup between these two teams. I don't know for sure, but I don't think that Michaela Stanfield's time frame lines up with her coming back for that game. But we'll have to see what happens there. I would really like to be at that game. I really want to go watch it. And it's in Monty, which is just right in my backyard. So I'm going to make a sincere effort to go there and catch that game between those two teams. We talk about those girls all the time because of all the success they've had over the last couple seasons. I have a goals update, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Montesano's win over Eatonville. Now, the first goals update that I got, I love the beginning of the message I got from Coach Daniel was, hey, you guys have been missing when we have these like massive statistical games, because this is the U15 team that used to win by like scoring 10, 12, 14 goals every game. And now they're playing in a Premier League, so they're playing in a much higher level of competition. And he's like, hey, we went ahead and just scored a bunch of goals again. So the goals... again, and I know I explained this a lot, but I want to make sure people understand. This Premier U15 team, these kids were so good last year that it was determined that they can no longer play with normal people. So they played in a league that's a couple steps up from the league that they were playing in. They're playing against really, really high-level competition. And they just beat the WE Surf team 14-0. 14.
It's a lot of points.
It's a lot of goals. And I did have a note, too, from Coach Daniel on this, that the team they were playing against, because I think when you see a 14-0 victory, you're like, all right, but how bad is that team you just played against, right? Or like, are they, whatever the scenario is. But the team that they played has played 3 games in this Premier League, tied one 4-4, and then the losses were 4-0 and 3-0. So the fact that the goals came out and the result was not close to what any of that team's previous results had been. They just totally kicked their butts. The goals are coming off of a loss, and they came out and they played angry. Hebron Garcia is going to get an Athlete of the Week nomination for scoring 4 goals in that game and having 2 assists.
Wow.
JB Fabian also had 4 goals. Michael Garcia had 3 goals. So you had 3 different players who scored a hat trick or more for the goals in that game. Trevin, 2 goals and 1 assist. Israel, 1 goal and 2 assists. Josh, Jackson, Talon, Zeke, Reyes, and Rigo each had an assist as well. Hebron was named player of the match. He had previously scored in 4 of the 6 games this season. And today he doubled his tally of goals, which is pretty cool. The coaching staff said they had a really hard time naming an honorable mention. All the coaches were having an extremely difficult time picking the man of the match until Hebron managed to run away with it at the end. Michael, JB, and Hebron with their first hat tricks of the season. So that's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of good stuff in store for this Premier Goals U15 team going forward, and I'm very excited to hear a lot about that. Now, we do have a boys U13 team that lost 2-1 in the second half on an own goal, cost them their lead.
Ooh.
That's unfortunate. A girls U14 team that tied 2-2 with Crossfire, and the quote from the coach said, "A shot by Zippy that resulted in an own goal and a second goal by Anna. Player of game would be the whole team. Everyone played unbelievable and hit a post 3 or 4 times, so they're getting really close to scoring. Anna would be the player of the match there for scoring a goal. The boys U11 team with a 5-2 win versus Mount Rainier FC. And the notes say after going down 2-0 in the first 10 minutes, the goals managed to climb back to 2-2 before the half ended. And then Allen scored the first goal, making it 2-1. And Ansel got the assist. Allen scored a solo goal that made it 2-2. In the second half, the goals just ran away with it, scoring 3 goals. Allen, Levi, and Alex, with assists from Alexander, Allen, and Johan. The player of the match says Delilah. Says she was a brick wall and would not let the boys get past her. Hey, that's cool. So this is a boys team that has a girl named Delilah playing on it. That's kind of awesome. She was not dribbled past once. And then as an honorable mention, Allen with a hat trick and a goal, as well as John, who had great saves to keep the lead and hold off Mount Rainier. The BO5 team won 6-1, and the co-players of the game were Hugo Garcia, who was a captain and just commended for his leadership, and also Hank Dolman, who had his first hat trick of the season, which I believe we're calling a Hank trick, because his name is Hank. Henk, not Hank, but Hank.
Oh, Hank. A Hank trick.
Hank,
Okay.
Hank, yeah. So we have nominations for Athlete of the Week for Hebron Garcia, for Hank Dolman, for Delilah Wiggins for her defensive contributions as well. I believe, that's going to do it for our goals update. So I want to talk a little bit before we name. Well, we're going to take.
You have to read that, or
I don't have the.
Oh, you don't have it?
No. I'll just.
Hey, Daniel, you should send us the.
I don't. I'll just. When it's time to take the break, I'll just talk about Spivey a little bit.
Okay,
we'll
that sounds
do it
good.
that way.
Okay.
But I want to discuss Montesano's game against Eatonville this week, and I wish that I had stats, but I don't. But I can tell you who scored all the touchdowns.
The Tutties.
The Tutties. Gabe Bodwell had 3. Thomas Flink's fumble recovery. Thomas Flink's fumble recovery for the Bulldogs was pretty cool. That was a play where the ball bounced up to him, And Thomas is pretty small. He plays like that hybrid corner linebacker position for Montesano. But when he grabbed that ball, we really got to see a demonstration of what Thomas can really do for you, which is when he gets a seam, he's really fast and he's quick and he can move. He got to the end zone really well, got some lead blockers out in front of him, and scored a defensive touchdown. And then as far as the Athlete of the Week nominations from this game go, I have two, and I think they're both pretty compelling. You know, Gabe, I think Gabe keeps scoring 3 touchdowns, and it's going to keep compounding. Like, it's the fact that he scores 3 touchdowns in some scenarios might make you yawn and be like, oh, another 3 touchdown performance by Gabe Bodwell.
Touchdowns are so boring.
But really, for me, like, the longer this streak goes, and it's at 4 games in a row now, and the game before that he had 2. So he's 1 touchdown away from having a 5-game streak of 3 touchdowns. It's pretty amazing. So, like, the longer he gets into this streak of 3 touchdown games, the more impressed I am with it. The other one was Torrin Kreitz, and I don't think Torrin is a sophomore. I don't think we've talked a ton about Torrin. I know that we have mentioned him. He is a big, strong player who also is really, really fast. He plays free safety, and he also mixes in at a wide receiver position for Monty on offense. And Torrin Kreitz is a name that you're absolutely going to be hearing over the next few years in Montesano football, but he has managed, even as a sophomore, to have a huge impact for Monty this year as well. He's had several picks already this year. So like having him come out in a game and have 2 interceptions is really not all that surprising. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but he also he had a pick 6 and a kick return for a touchdown. In this game, he had 2 interceptions, and then he also had a 39-yard touchdown catch on a bomb, in which I would commend him on that play for using his body really well to shield the defender. It was a well-placed ball by Tyson Perry, a nice high rainbow on a deep throw, and Torrin did a good job of just making sure that the defender didn't have a chance to get to the ball, and then he ran it into the end zone for the touchdown. So I would give Athlete of the Week nominations. Well, I don't have to give them because I received them from other people. But Athlete of the Week nominations for Gabe Bodwell and Torrin Kreitz for their performance in this game. I think for fans of this Montesano football team, and this is a conversation that we've had a little bit as the season has gone on, is how much are they really going to be tested? We've discussed the fact that this league is not as strong as it has been in the past. Tenino, they did get their first win against Hoquiam this week, but you know they were 0-5 up to that point. They've really struggled this year. Hoquiam also has really struggled this year. Elma is, I think, the surprising bright spot there, where I'm not saying that I thought Elma was bad, but I am surprised to see them at 4-2, and I was surprised to have seen how many points they put up on Black Hills, which is a Black Hills team that held Aberdeen to 17 points last week, and Aberdeen needed a late touchdown to beat Black Hills. I'll just admit this, I had thought of Aberdeen as a significantly better team than Elma. So seeing Elma score that many points against Black Hills when Aberdeen didn't manage that, that was pretty surprising to me.
Maybe Aberdeen broke Black Hills.
It's possible. Maybe Black Hills came out of that game just beaten
Exhausted.
up, like the Seahawks used to do to teams back in like the Legion of Boom. Like there was that stat about how teams were terrible after they played the week after they played the Seahawks. That's possible. Maybe the Bobcats gave the Eagles an assist.
It seems likely.
But circling back to the point that I just strayed so far away from, the league is not as strong as it has been the previous couple years when you had Tenino and Eatonville and Montesano all ranked in the top 10, all state playoff teams. And you don't have that anymore because Eatonville graduated a ton of really good players. Tenino also graduated a ton of really good players and lost their whole coaching staff. I had felt going into this game that Eatonville was probably going to give Montesano the best test that they've had. And if you watch the beginning of the game, actually pretty much through 3/4 of the game, I think that was absolutely true. Eatonville defensively was pretty stout and making it difficult for Monty to get much going on offense. It was 9-0 after the first quarter. That was after a pretty good drive that led to a Gabe Bodwell touchdown, and then just nothing for Monty offensively really after that. the only reason that they were up 16-0 going into halftime was because of the Thomas Flink defensive touchdown. And I do really believe that this win was driven by Montesano's defense forcing turnovers. You know, when you force 7 turnovers in a game, and it's not like Eatonville couldn't move the ball. They were able to move the ball a little bit, but there was so much pressure in the backfield coming from Monty's defensive line and their linebackers that Eatonville quarterbacks were running for their lives. They were chucking the ball up over their shoulder and just a whole bunch of picks. But for someone who's rooting for Montesano, you know, you kind of feel like because your schedule's not going to be that difficult compared to some of these other teams, when playoff seeding rolls around, you need to win your games convincingly, because these guys who are doing the seeding are going to be looking at all these margins of victory and trying to figure out, you know, which teams are by the slimmest of margins in the top 8 of the state, which teams are the best.
Yeah.
So you need convincing margins of victory in these games. And Eatonville was really stout for the first 3 quarters. Montesano had the 16-0 lead with the defensive touchdown going into halftime. And then in the third quarter, Eatonville flat out was the better team for an entire quarter. Monty's offense went 3 and out twice, and Eatonville had a really long winding drive that got inside the Montesano 5-yard line. They actually scored a touchdown, but the Bulldogs got bailed out by the fact that there was a holding penalty on the play. So the touchdown got taken away. Then Monty's defense stiffened up and held him out, and they turned it over on downs. And then in the fourth quarter, it was like, I don't know whether this was Eatonville getting tired or them kind of realizing, hey, we can't, you know, nothing's going to happen, and they got deflated, or what the deal was. But Monty came out in the fourth quarter and played phenomenal. Scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And that was even with their JV turning the ball over on the last 2 possessions of the game. Montesano really just took over in the fourth quarter and led to the convincing margin. Next week is Hoquiam. As I mentioned, Hoquiam has struggled a lot this season. And that'll, you know, if Montesano can do what they should do, then they'll move to 7-0 on the season. But again, I'm not going to do the thing where, like, I'm forecasting an undefeated season. But from now until the time the state playoffs happen, Monty will be favored in every game they play. That's a scientific fact. Andrew, do you have any thoughts about Montesano football?
Not really.
Okay.
They have good coaches.
I have one other guy that I really want to shout out that I haven't. Well, okay, 2 actually, because Bodie, one of our favorite players, Bodie Poehler, had 2 interceptions in this game, and both of them were just absolutely insane. He had one where he was moving backwards and the ball was kind of a floater, and it was like a full extension leap
Backwards.
No, he was moving away from the ball, but it was like a forward dive with a full extension leap. Actually, one of the photographers that was like one of the high school kids that was taking pictures got a really nice shot of it.
Nice.
It was a great pick. And then the second interception he had was, for my money, is one of the most difficult ways to intercept a pass. He was jumping a route that was like a sideline route, a short sideline route. And he came from out of nowhere, which means he's at a full sprint. It's a hard pass. He's charging it, and like he comes into the frame and catches the ball against his chest in a way where, man, if you have a chance, I don't know if there's even access to this film, but like it would be really cool if we could figure out a way to post some of these plays. Bodie made just 2. That
sounds like
insane.
the kind of interception that works in high school, and then you move up a level, and all of a sudden, instead of throwing 70-mile-an-hour throws, the quarterbacks are throwing 90-mile-an-hour pitches.
Oh, for sure.
And all of a sudden it's just like knocking the breath out of you instead of you catching it.
Yeah, and that was just a really great play by Bodie.
And that's not to take anything away from it,
No,
but the way you're describing it, I know what you're talking about. That is so hard to corral because it hits your chest, your chest plates on your pads hard, and then you're trying to hang on to it.
And it's really just difficult to catch a ball like that when you're sprinting towards it, you know?
Yeah.
So I was very impressed by both of Bodie's interceptions. And then the guy that I think the guy I really want to shout out that I haven't had a chance to talk much about because we're not getting individual stats. Like, I don't have tackle stats. I don't know who has how many tackles for Monty. That isn't something that's been released
Usually
publicly.
there's 2 tackles on offense and 2 tackles on defense.
No, only 1 tackle on defense for the Bulldogs. They run a 3-3
okay.
defense. But anyway,
I knew that and should not have made that mistake.
I gotta mention the play of Gabe Pahala because he's playing middle linebacker. He's a junior, and Gabe, 2 really good Gabes on this team because you got Gabe Bodwell and you got Gabe Pahala. But Pahala has been, you watch him last year and it was very obvious that physically he was super capable of jumping in and being a really good player. But it would seem that he often caught himself out of position, wasn't in the right spot, didn't always know. He was young and learning and didn't always know when and where he was supposed to be. But as the middle linebacker for this Montesano defense that's allowing 5 points a game, I believe, this season, he has been absolutely incredible. Not only does he seem to he has a great nose for the ball, he seems to always know where he's supposed to be and be making plays. He's a very sure tackler. When he gets a run up on somebody, he hits like a jackhammer. I've been really impressed by Gabe Pahala this season, and he's only a junior, so you got a whole nother season. He's the kind of guy that when I watch him, I think, man, when that kid is a senior, if this team has success, that could be like a defensive league MVP caliber player. I'm not predicting that he's going to win the defensive league MVP because there's a lot of other stuff that goes into that. But I remember watching Mateo Sanchez as a sophomore and saying out loud, like, that's the kind of guy, like that's the kind of player who wins defensive league MVP. And it's the way that Pahala is playing. For me, I'm not an expert in, football defenses, and maybe coaches would have a completely different opinion than me. But when I watch Gabe Pahala, I think like that's a special talent at linebacker there, and that kid's going to do some really big things. He's already doing big things as a junior. He's going to do really big things as a senior for Monty. So real quick, before we go into naming a Spivey Athlete of the Week, I want to talk about Spivey Realty Group because we have welcomed in this sponsorship from Spivey, and ultimately, we discuss a lot about how when companies sponsor us, they are not just sponsoring our show. They're not just sponsoring Daniel or me or Andrew or Pax. They're really trying to have an impact on the community by supporting local sports, because what we want to achieve here is to cover local sports in a way that makes them feel more special and cool. We exist to create a platform for local athletes to be recognized for their achievements and their accomplishments. And a company like Spivey Realty Group stepping in, I don't want people who are watching this show or listening to this show to just be like, wow, that's Spivey supports that show, the Scrimmage, that's cool. Spivey, with their sponsorship, is not just supporting the Scrimmage, they are supporting local sports and trying to do something important and impactful in the community. So we thank Spivey so much for that sponsorship and appreciate the heart that's behind it, because anybody can go buy ads, anybody can go do advertising somewhere, but it takes a company that really cares about the community to invest their money in places like the local sports radio broadcasts or our show or the Daily World sports section or wherever it is. You gotta care a little bit more about the community to do things like that. So thank you so much to Spivey Realty Group. And now let's jump into the nominees. Andrew, you and I will discuss what to do here. What is happening with your camera? Oh, it's Pax.
It's a Pax cam.
Oh, he's so cute.
I realized if anyone out there wants to sponsor Pax, he eats a lot of food, so.
Does he like it when I call him Gluteus Paximus?
I think he just likes it when he gets attention. I'm pretty sure he's a firm believer in there is no such thing as bad attention.
Well, he's a great guard dog. I mean, when nobody was home today when I came through your gate, he was very intimidating when he came
I don't
up to
believe
my
you.
car. He was really intimidating. He jumped on me. So that's not something that I think only scary, intimidating guard dogs would do that. All right, Andrew, let's talk about our nominees for Spivey Athlete of the Week. I mentioned already Gabe Bodwell and Torrin Kreitz from Montesano football. Bodwell, 4th week in a row, Again, I don't have the stats, but I'm fairly certain he had.
That shouldn't stop you from making them up.
That's a good point. I'm fairly certain that he had. I'm pretty confident to say he had over 100 yards rushing, and the 3 touchdowns to go with it. Torrin Kreitz, the big bomb for a touchdown. He had another catch earlier in the game, and then 2 interceptions. And Torrin, as a sophomore, is really having a big impact for Monty. Bethany Henderson for Monty girls soccer. You get an Athlete of the Week nominee just for being the only person to score on Emmie Spencer. That's pretty cool.
Seems fair.
Yeah, and that was, by the way, an outside nomination as well. I'm not just making these up. Those were nominations that came from the outside. No, I was not standing outside, Hannah. These are not. I did not invent these. These were real. We had a few.
These are outside nominations from outside this house.
Outside of, whatever stuff. Ooh, did I get stats? I might have got stats. Hold on. Can I make any sense of these? I'll use them later. Okay.
What stats were they?
I can't tell because they're on like a. I was asking some Monty people I know for stats.
Okay, so it's Monty stats. Okay, we're not interested. If it was Elma stats, I was gonna be like, no, we need to know those stats.
I think actually, good point. I think actually when I have a chance to sort through these and figure out what they say, that'll be very helpful. But right now, I'm just gonna say Gabe Bodwell had like 400 rushing yards. We had 2 Athlete of the Week, 2 or 3 Athlete of the Week nominations come for Grays Harbor Gulls. Hebron Garcia. 4 goals, 2 assists in that big 14-0 win. Then you also had Hank Dolman with his Hank trick in the 6-1 win for the Gulls as well. And then Delilah Wiggins for her defensive contributions in a 5-2 win that has now seen the B13 manage 4 wins and 1 draw to start the season. And then also Alan Reyes, who managed a hat trick with an assist in that game as well. Andrew, do you have initial thoughts on I know what I would do.
I know what you would do too.
But okay, so let me just throw it out there, and you tell me.
I was really hoping Daniel would be able to come back and argue with you.
There's no. See, here's the thing.
But he hasn't even given us a Hoquiam nomination yet.
Well, one of the things that I enjoyed the most about last week was that we had nominations from all these different sports that came in. We had volleyball, we had cross country, we had soccer, we had football. We had several different sports that got nominations, and this week it was just, I don't know what the reason was, if there was less big performances across our sports.
Well, maybe nobody read about it in the paper.
Well, and I know in football we have less possibilities because Raymond South Bend didn't play. PL Willapa Valley lost. Hoquiam lost. Aberdeen played the number 1 ranked team in the state and lost. So there weren't a lot of teams that I felt like were going to be able to throw somebody out there that's compelling. Again, there very well could be a good candidate from Elma, but I wouldn't know because not only could I not find the stats in our newspaper, but I found an article from the Black Hills side that had a little bit of details but didn't have any stats, and it really only showed one. I think it only said 1 touchdown that Elma scored was a Carter Studer to Jacob Meadows pass for a touchdown. And I have no idea what else happened in the game except I know the score and the sequence of how the scoring went. So there could be an Eagle, but people, if you want your Eagles to be represented here, you got to nominate. I need nominations coming in if we're going to have less Bulldogs as Athlete of the Week. Because at the moment, what I want to do, if I'm the unilateral decision maker, is go dual Athletes of the Week from Monty's football game with Gabe Bodwell.
Oh, you're going to make Gabe share it?
Well, Gabe Bodwell for the offensive performance and Torrin Kreitz for the well, he had 2 ways because he got a receiving touchdown and 2 interceptions. But we did this once last year when we had Gabe and Mateo Sanchez share the Athlete of the Week because Mateo had a massive defensive game and Gabe had a massive offensive game.
And so that would count as 2 Montesano Athletes of the Week, so then Daniel could have a few in the next few weeks.
Well, I mean, these Athletes of the Week...
It's really not just about where the athletes are from.
Oh, and by the way, Torrin Kreitz's dad is the first member of the Scrimmage Mile High Club. And I'm not sure if I want to elaborate on that any further.
Yeah, you probably don't.
Yeah. He listened to our podcast in an airplane. So.
Sure he did.
He did. He told me. He said, I listened to your podcast in the airplane. And then he said, Scrimmage Mile High Club. And I was like, you're the first member. So shout out Kurt Kreitz. Thanks for listening. Anyway, so my thought was, I think Bethany Henderson's goal against Emmie Spencer that's an amazing accomplishment. I love the goals. Hebron Garcia, his performance is very compelling with the 4 goals and 2 assists in that huge win for the goals.
He has got an athlete of the week before, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, he has. And I know that I get very like tunnel vision on what's in front of me, but what I watch every week without fail is Montesano football. And I've just been extremely impressed with these 2 guys, not only this week, but through the course of the season. And again, I'll say it again, to me, the more weeks in a row that Gabe Bodwell continues to get 3 touchdowns, it becomes more impressive as you go along.
So what are you going to do when he gets 3 touchdowns next week?
Is Daniel going to be here? Because that does make it harder.
Hopefully Daniel will be here.
So if I can get producer approval, I would like to name Gabe Bodwell and Torrin Kreitz the co-athletes of the week for their performance in Montesano's football game.
That sounds reasonable.
Okay.
It's very impressive.
Okay.
And we do need to give one to Gabe for sure at some point. So
yeah,
like he's definitely earned it.
Yeah. Well, every week he's deserved it, but Anyway, I'll just go ahead and officially announce it. Our Spivey Athlete of the Week is co-athletes of the week, and they're both from Montesano football. It's going to be Gabe Bodwell for his 3-touchdown performance in a 36-0 win over Eatonville, and Torrin Kreitz as well for not only having a 39-yard touchdown reception, but also intercepting 2 passes for Montesano. Congratulations to these 2 Bulldogs for winning the Spivey Athlete of the Week.
Yes, congratulations. And if anyone's out there and is yelling at their whatever they're watching or listening to us right now that you totally sent nominations, why weren't you reading them? Then don't send them to Justin, send them to Daniel, please.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean you can send them to our social.
Yes, you can also send them to our Scrimmage socials.
Multiple things,
and we will all be able to see them,
or our email. So if you would like to nominate if people think I'm game in the system here, if you'd like to nominate an athlete of the week, you can send it to our messages on either X or Facebook or Instagram. We all have access to those. And also our email, Andrew, our technology guy, has set it up that when an email comes to our Scrimmage email account, it gets forwarded to all of our personal email accounts. So we all see that. And that email is
thescrimmage@gmail.com.
Thank you. Had a little frog in my throat. Took care of it.
We're proud of you.
So I do really want to encourage people though. Although it does seem like sometimes I'm just trying to always give the award to a Bulldog. I want all the nominations to come in. I want to know, like we had one for Faith Prosh for Hoquiam volleyball. We had, I think it was Alexia. We had an Acosta volleyball player. We had someone nominate a Montesano volleyball player. Like we get these nominations, and we, at the very least, we are going to mention and discuss every single player that gets nominated for Athlete of the Week. So if you know someone who accomplished something who deserves to be recognized, please do not hesitate to send us a message and let us know what happened.
That's right.
With that, I think we will wrap up the show today. Does that sound good, Andrew?
That sounds good.
Pax, does that sound good to you? Yeah,
Pax is asleep.
He's sleeping anyway.
He's resting up.
Well, I think that'll do it for the show today. The Scrimmage is brought to you by Spivey Realty Group and the law office of Jeffrey A. Domashevitz. So for our co-host Daniel Hargrove, who did join us for a little while but is no longer with us today, and my trusty producer Andrew, I thought the Cougs had a chance to win the national title. Gross.
And for my co-host Maximus.
Gluteus Maximus?
Gluteus Maximus. That's your name.
That's my name?
Yeah, that's your name.
I could be Gluteus
Your name for him.
Maximus? I'm not as cool as Pax.
You can definitely be Gluteus Maximus.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it for our show today. Appreciate everyone who listened. Be sure to check us out on our socials. And like I said, reach out to us and let us know not only if they're athletes of the week, but if you have any questions or comments about our show, please, if you give us a review, 5 stars only. But if you have a complaint, feel free to email it and I will forward it to Andrew.
Give us 5 stars. Say horrible things about Justin. We'll read it.
Okay, thanks. Bye.